Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Eden of LightCycleAstrology.com, and today we are doing Mantic Monday episode number 27, taking a look at the astrology that's happening for the week ahead for us between March the 11th through the 17th. I am very relieved going into this week because we have a much different tone at the outset of this week. And this week is a break from the almost like stormy kind of conditions that have been reflected in the astrology over the last maybe even 3 weeks, or at least 2 weeks for me, for sure. So I like this week a lot. We have some planets moving into positive placements. We have some challenging aspects that are fading out, and we have some good aspects that seem to be bringing imagination and just some playful, positive, happy energy. So this week is quite a shift in mood over what has been transpiring. And I don't know about you guys, but it seems like ever since Venus and Mars entered Aquarius and transitioned over Pluto, ever since about that time, it seems like a lot of it's just been one heavy hitting transit after another that has brought with it challenges or transformation or intensity. So I like this week a lot because it feels like we're kind of coming out of the woods, as it were, a little bit. And I think that is very fitting because we're getting really, really close to the spring equinox. And that's a time of the year, of course, where we exit the winter time, a time of darkness and cold, and we enter the beginnings of a new light cycle that is the takeover of light from darkness. So that victorious moment where the sun crosses the equinox and moves into Aries, light is seen to be victorious and takes over or wins a victory over the darkness of winter, a time where Saturn was the archetypal god in power or enthroned. So this week is kind of the transition into that glorious takeover of light. And so there is all sorts of things that come along with that. There is a lot more of the sensualness of springtime, when life is rebooting back into a time of mating and becoming re-energized and all of those things. But there is also kind of this romantic imagination or creativity that is working alongside the actual the physical dimension where life is sort of reproducing or going through that stage of repopulating or what have you. Flowers blooming or new buds on the branches and things like that. But there is also this kind of theme around those same types of creative energies that are inside of us too, that we can harness for art or social cohesion with other people. So we'll get into the astrology that's coming for the week ahead here in a moment. Before we do, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit notifications so you don't miss any videos. Leave some comments in the comment section, especially if you have any stories to tell about the Mars-Uranus square that we went through last week. That one was really potent and in my face pretty much the whole week. It not only was felt by me, and I had a real visceral experience with that, but I also noticed that with everybody around me, that the aggravation or challenging circumstances that brought up frustration was just really easy to see for that particular transit, especially on Thursday when the moon transited by Mars in the sign of Aquarius and sort of lit up the square to Uranus. So, but yeah, if you have any stories, you can drop those in the comment section. That is always great to hear how you guys experience the astrology out there. And you can always go to my website, lightcycleastrology.com, if you want to get a reading from me. Okay, guys, well, let's jump right in. We'll pull up the real-time clock here and take a look at the week ahead. So the first thing that is of note here, and I think I have to get my day right here. So let's go back to Monday. And let me put back in all of the planets we're talking about. I'll put back in Venus, Jupiter, Pluto, and then let's also put back in the ascendant and descendant. Normally I'd take stuff out just to not make the chart too busy looking, but okay, so on Monday, March the 11th, I've got the real-time clock set to the location of London to try to make it central for everyone. But we'll see here that around it's pretty late on London time on Monday. So this might be Monday, Tuesday for most of us. But on Monday, as it were, Tuesday morning, Venus enters Pisces, and this is, of course, a one of the best planetary things that happens in the sky from the standpoint of astrology all year long, because we have Venus moving into the sign of her exaltation in Pisces, and Venus being a benefic planet that has to do with relational things or love or sex or things like that. It's just feels like, okay, things are shifting, right? Venus is becoming exalted, this planet that may bring about a lot of creative juices that can help in anything we're doing creatively, or it can be an indicator that there are positive things happening in love and relationships with those around us and those we care for. And also, it can mean that we are entering a time where we're moving into our sensual bodies, and how that becomes important and is revitalized in some ways. So Venus Exalted is definitely one of my favorite times of the year. It's a very romantic and beautiful time, of course, with Venus being so lifted up and shining so brightly. So I like that. So that happens on March the 11th. Venus enters Pisces. Now we roll the clock to Thursday here, and we're going to see that Thursday the 14th, we get the Mars-Uranus square finally fading out. So yeah, this square, it came in last week, early last week, and it built all the way until Saturday of last weekend, and it's still hanging around in the first part of the week, but it's fading out. And actually, what I want to do is just show you a little bit of a review for this, because it was such a potent transit that, at least from what I noticed from people around me, is that, by Thursday, look at the moon. The moon is in Taurus here. But let's roll the clock back to the Thursday before that, March the 7th. The moon is in Aquarius and is moving by Mars, and Mars is in that applying. It hasn't yet perfected the square to Uranus, but it's still within a very close range of degree to perfecting, and which means it's applying. And oftentimes when angles are perfecting, they can feel like the energy is building and building, or becoming more intensified as things get closer to that perfection moment. So Mars is building that energy to Uranus, and then the moon comes through and then eventually sweeps by Venus, and then enters Pisces and goes by Saturn. Now, this is all happening while the moon is in her dark moon phase, which is a pretty potent lunar phase just in and of itself. So that was last week, a pretty heavy vibe, really. And then we get the new moon moment on Sunday here. And then the moon now is traveling through Aries. And then there's this really interesting moment on Wednesday, even though we're talking about Thursday, where the Mars-Uranus square is fading away. Just, the day before or so, we have the moon going through a very auspicious moment that I did want to highlight for you guys this week. Here's the moon at 13 degrees conjoining Jupiter at 13 degrees. Now, this is really interesting because Venus moves into Pisces. Pisces is exalted. So we have an exalted host ruler of the sign of Taurus, right? Venus rules Taurus. And so the moon on Wednesday, Jupiter and Uranus, these planets in Taurus are all in the in Venus's temple, and Venus is responsible or looking after them or providing resources. That ancient language that describes how you interpret planets in a particular sign, looking back to the ruler of that sign and saying, well, what condition is the ruler of the sign in? Is the ruler of the sign in good condition, bad condition? Is the ruler of the sign getting maltreated by a malefic planet in an angle to that planet or conjoining the planet? Or is that ruler in a sign where it's depressed, or anything like that, the dignity kind of a thing? But here we see Venus in incredible dignity, the best dignity, right? Lifted up on high, exalted in Pisces, co-present with Saturn, a malefic, but not super close to it. So that co-presence could diminish this ever so slightly. But in general, you have this incredible host that is lifted up and hosting the moon, hosting Jupiter, hosting Uranus. Now, we also have a mutual reception because we have Jupiter is the sign ruler of the place that Venus is in. So this is a really auspicious moment that for me is just like, it feels like angels are singing on high or something like that. Right. So I love the middle of the week here where the moon is conjoining a benefic planet that is in mutual reception with an exalted sign ruler. It just feels like, wow, this is a big, the storm clouds are clearing and breaking, and something really pleasant and nice is happening. So this is part of the good feeling that I think comes along with this week. But anyway, we were talking about Thursday before we went off onto that tangent here. So Thursday, the Mars-Uranus square fades away. Mars is moving 3 degrees or so beyond that square angle to Uranus. So that energy is finally calming down. And then as we go forward into the week here, no, I take that back. As included on this same day of Thursday, we also have that the sun now is getting very, very close to Neptune in Pisces, moving to about within 3 degrees, applying to the planet Neptune by adherence or conjunction. So we're looking forward to a Neptune cazimi that is also happening this week at the end here on Sunday when that cazimi happens. And then the sun will enter Aries and move out of the sign of Pisces, and that is when the cazimi Neptune sun energy sort of fades out or is broken off. So that is most of the week here. We just have Saturday. We'll roll the clock forward just to get to this one other thing that is kind of happening, is that we have March the 16th on Saturday. Mercury, very, very important actually, moves into visibility or emerges visible in the sky. And this time Mercury is going to be seen at night. So this is when you have clear skies right after sunset and the sun goes down. Let me just roll the real-time clock back by hours to give you this. This is something that I like to show on the channel whenever Mercury has a phasal change. But so you can see here, the reason why at the beginning of this video I put in the ascendant and descendant degree is because mostly with mundane astrology, you take those out, right? Because it's locational. So usually you don't have the ascendant descendant because those are just local to that particular location, like for instance here in London. But this serves to give you guys the way in which you could see, here's the descendant in the 7th house. This is the point at which the sky and the earth are meeting on that horizon. And you can see here, if I come back by a couple of hours, at the end of the day here, the sun hits the descendant. That means the sun goes down below the horizon, right? And then Neptune sets, and then Mercury is still up in the sky above the descendant. So, but Mercury is now about 15 degrees separated away from the sun, which means that Mercury's light as a star is bright enough to cut through the fading light of the end of the day that is still lingering in the sky. So you can basically, Mercury's light becomes powerful enough to see as a star again. And for ancient astrologers living in the ancient world, um, actually, that would be weird if they didn't, right? But for ancient astrologers, Mercury becoming visible again, it's like they would go out and they would look and they would go, oh, okay, we still can't see Mercury. Mercury must be too close to the sun to be seen. But when Mercury appeared again on either side of the sun, either as a morning star or as an evening star, it was like, wow, something is going to be delivered. Something is appearing or being born in the world. Something is manifest with a Mercury signature. So when Mercury appears, you can often get themes like a plan that is becoming implemented that you've been cultivating maybe in your mind or something like that. You can see the emergence of messages or communications from people or situations in which you've been waiting for some kind of information to come along and be known or something like that. Like, for instance, if you're waiting for, you know, the right answer about should I move or should I take the job, or am I going to hear back from somebody that I messaged that I've been waiting on a reply or something like that. Mercury emerging as an evening star back into visibility in a masculine sign is interesting because typically Mercury as an evening star will represent more of a feminine or nighttime, almost like having more of like a Venusian kind of quality to him, being either a bit more introverted or a bit more social and communicative, especially as it relates to social kinds of things. But in a masculine sign, especially one like Aries, which is going to really say exactly what it thinks and not hold back. So we get this very interesting mixture of this feminine Mercury in her feminine form, but in a real powerful sign. So I would, this makes me think of like when you hear people talk about strong women or women finding strength or being a strong woman, that whole modern thing that is really prominent right now, you can expect that theme will probably be very noticeable or prominent in the news cycle or in social media or whatever right now. But just on a personal level for yourselves, or for ourselves, I guess. Mercury emerging is kind of like you hear back from somebody, or you are ready to implement a plan, especially in Aries, right, where you're ready to begin something new that you've been maybe gestating or thinking on. So that I like a lot. At the end of the week here, we get Mercury emerging back into visibility. And if we, again, just mentioning this as we tie a bow on the timing this week, we also get on Saturday that cazimi with the Sun and Neptune. So here we are. Let me just get that exact here. Neptune at 27 degrees and 20 minutes. And here comes Sunday London time. The cazimi is coming through right around 11:20 a.m. London time, so you can convert that. And then, just even though this is like going beyond the week here, the sun, very close to the end of Pisces, is going to move into Aries on March the 20th on the equinox, and that breaks apart the Sun-Neptune conjunction or cazimi kind of energy as the sun changes signs there. So that is the week. Now let's talk about some archetypal themes or archetypal forms we may encounter with these aspects that are coming through. So the one thing that is really coming up for me is that we have a conjunction with the Sun and Neptune, um, which is in the sign of Pisces, Jupiter, a Jupiter ruled sign. We have Venus hosting Jupiter, exalted. We have a mutual reception with Venus and Jupiter hosting each other, both benefics. So one thing for me is that I think that when you see a conjunction like this between the Sun and Neptune, it's always going to bring in those themes around the Sun representing our life direction, our purpose, the kinds of things that we imagine for ourselves that are important in our life. Like, for instance, just what do we want out of life? What holds a kind of throne-like central place in things that we want our lives to be about or represent, or all of that kind of stuff. So the Sun making that conjunction to a planet that is very imaginative, has a lot of romantic longing, associated with its archetypal energy. For me, you get the interpretation that it's like, wow, the Sun is on the verge of entering Aries and becoming exalted, moving across the spring equinox moment, taking over from the darkness, becoming victorious. And right before this happens, Neptune is providing the Sun, I think, an image, a creative image, one that is going to be about imagining some way in which we could shift our lives or open our lives up, or some horizon that is all of a sudden coming into view. And it's like we see this beautiful romantic horizon that stirs our soul, and it's like we say, yeah, that's what's really important. And that's really important to have that kind of moment, because so much of life is about being in the trenches and having to just put one foot in front of the other, and oftentimes we just get stuck in that kind of soldier on, or you just have to trot on. And it can feel like that a lot of times, where you're kind of just almost, I don't want to say trapped or like incarcerated, but it can feel like you're just kind of, you're just going and going and going, and you have the plan in front of you, and you're just left to kind of like see that plan through and soldier on. But there are so many steps, and there are so many things that require attention or duty or responsibility, that you're just sort of, you're just sort of going through it. And sometimes all you can do is put your head down and just keep going. Especially we have Saturn in the sign of Pisces. So there may be this combination of feeling like that. And then all of a sudden the Sun provides a stirring of the soul, an image that floats up into your mind. And it's like, well, don't forget about this. And it's like this beautiful romantic thing comes into view or is on the horizon. And you're like, yes, I forgot about that, but I'm not going to forget about that. I have to bring that back to where it's meant to be, a dream, the birth of a new dream, the birth of a new desire, or something that you want, or picture that is important for what life is all about, emerges into view. And then, of course, the Sun moves across the spring equinox boundary into Aries. And it's like we take that romantic imagination and we make it manifest. We take action on it, right? Something along those lines is how I would describe potential ways in which we may encounter the archetypal combinations of the Sun conjoining with Neptune at the tail end of the sign of Pisces, about to move into the sign of Aries. But along with this, you could see things like we're open, like, it's like that moment where you just sort of open up spiritually or soulfully, and that provides allows new imaginal images to sort of come in, or maybe somebody around us gives us a great idea and we're not shut off to it, or we're not instantly like knee jerking like no to something. It's like we're able to be open and not knee jerk reaction to something, just enough for our filter to be down and for something to kind of permeate in. Neptune is a really interesting god. I'll tell you why. Because Neptune originally was a god of wells. And then I won't go into the whole story, but essentially what happens with Neptune is this very minor god in a very localized place. I believe in, is it Italy? I think it's in Italy, but anyway, the point is that Neptune starts off as a local minor deity of just a small area, as a god of well water or wells. And as cultural diffusion happens, and one powerful empire takes over another, and so on and so forth, Neptune grows in stature and also grows to look after, or is the god of bigger and bigger bodies of water. It starts out as just the water in the well, then it moves to, well, where is the water of the well coming from? It's underground aquifers. So now he's a god of underground aquifers. And then what about lakes? And then eventually it's rivers that lead to the ocean, and then eventually it's the ocean. So one thing that I think that is remarkable about Neptune is, over time, Neptune has the ability, and Neptune's a slow-moving planet that moves slowly over time. But over time, it has that sense of, this is a god of water, and water tends to slowly permeate and inundate something and sort of fill it up. But it happens over time, and it's sort of like Jupiter in that it kind of expands. So one thing that this could be an omen of is that you're sort of the barrier, or the shields, or the walls of perception are sort of being permeated by this imagery that's coming along, or providing some kind of horizontal inspiration about what life could be about. And it sort of permeates through the normally closed off section of us. So if you think about water just expanding, and how Neptune as a god basically became more and more prominent as time went on, I think that's really interesting to think about it that way. But one thing, of course, that we have to always talk about with Neptune, that has been a staple interpretation ever since astrologers began trying to understand what Neptune represents symbolically in astrology, is that we get that ambiguousness, or cloudiness, or confusion, or even deception, or things like that. So of course you get more openness, and you're more what's the word? You're more ready to receive and be open, and receive new ideas, or hear new ideas out, or imagine what's possible. But then at the same time, it might be hazy, or a bit cloudy, or murky, or foggy. It might seem as though you're not really sure about what to do about any of the beautiful imagery that's coming in. That can also be kind of that sense of like, well, I'm just on the fence. I don't know. I have this great picture of what life could be about and how beautiful it could be, but I don't know. I'm not sure what to do, or how to do it, or I'm not sure if I even should do it in the first place. Maybe this is all foolishness. So there can be that ambiguousness. Alongside of that, there can be, oftentimes we associate things like this with laziness, the sun representing vitality, and Neptune sort of being just kind of like drugged out on the couch, like the, what's that? Alice in Wonderland, the was it the worm, or I can't remember, the worm that is smoking out of the hookah. And it's like, it was Lewis Carroll was connected with opium at the time that he was writing that. And so people postulated, oh, this is an opium smoking, hookah smoking worm in this drug fueled kind of story. It can definitely have that Alice in Wonderland kind of feeling to it for sure. So you can either sort of get mired and trapped in the never-ending story fantasy slash Alice in Wonderland opium den, or you can harness that imagination and it can provide a new spark of revitalization towards what life could be about if we've sort of been just head down in the trenches. So, but that's all part of it. So open but ambiguous would be my number 2 way in which these archetypal forms may be encountered. And that leads us to number 3, which is just part of this, which I feel like in general, not just with the Sun-Neptune conjunction that we've been talking about, but with Venus exalted, with the mutual reception between Venus and Jupiter, all of these things I feel like are speaking to things that are being re-energized or renewed, or new buds that are forming on the branches, the ice beginning to sort of melt and drip away, and the first beginnings of the springtime sun providing the heat and the light that signals to the tree that it's time to produce buds. I feel like a lot of the signs of this particular week are preparing us. And once the sun moves into Aries, a very energetic sign for the sun, it's like this moment right now, I think, is just broadly speaking to us getting a feeling of becoming re-energized or energized. So that's always a nice feeling, because again, after the last couple of weeks of more difficult or challenging or intense, sort of in the underworld, dark, wintry realm, it feels like we're able to sort of make an escape on some level or break free. And it's like maybe there's something that is revitalizing us or renewing us. And just in general, this is a new moon that is beginning right around the same time. The new moon being exalted in Taurus on Wednesday, conjoining benefic Jupiter that is in mutual reception to exalted Venus. It's just like, wow. I just feel like there's a lot of energy that is either creational or sexual or sensual, and it all is speaking to this beautiful time of the year where new buds form around us, but also that can symbolically represent new buds forming in our lives on some level or in some particular area. So that is my number 3. That is pretty much the way I'm looking at this week ahead. Thanks everybody for watching. I hope you guys got something good out of this. Please leave in the comments anything that you notice, or maybe I've missed a particular symbol or read it in a way that you see it differently. And I would love to hear your interpretation of maybe what is coming for us. You can always go to lightcycleastrology.com if you want to get a personal reading from me. And of course, we will be back again next Monday for another Mantic Monday episode, where we will for sure be talking about the sun moving into Aries and becoming exalted. So I hope you guys have a great week, and I will be back again next Monday. Bye for now.